In this video, I want to talk about the complicated nature of revenge in William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Whether you read the play or watch a film adaptation, though this film adaptation, the Kenneth Branagh of 1996 film adaptation, is actually the complete text of the play. So I watched this film adaptation in preparation for talking about Shakespeare's Hamlet, although you might also want to read the actual text of Shakespeare's play. But personally, I really enjoyed this film adaptation. I think it really does a very good job explaining the concept of revenge in the play. Well, so let me talk a little bit more about revenge in Hamlet. Well, revenge in Hamlet is very complicated. It's a complicated theme. Because readers can interpret differently the message that Shakespeare was attempting to communicate theatrically 400 years ago. I want to explore in Hamlet, well, let's say my conclusion is that revenge, when I read Hamlet or watch this film adaptation, my conclusion is that revenge, while it's necessary to preserve honor, should be committed in a public, a timely, and a transparent manner to prevent unnecessary and tragic deaths that are the result, the collective result, we could say, of private, secret acts of revenge, which at times appear motivated more by a personal hatred than by civic duty. So I want to examine Hamlet's, Laertes' and Fortinbras' methods of seeking revenge. And when I do so, I arrive at the conclusion that Shakespeare is arguing, or could be arguing, and we can interpret this, of course, very differently, but I would argue that Shakespeare is arguing that Fortinbras' revenge is justifiable because it is honorable, it is timely, it is public. While both Hamlet's and Laertes' revenge, they end tragically because they lack one or more of those characteristics. So, firstly, revenge is necessary to preserve honor. While some may interpret Hamlet as a play that attacks revenge as poisoning all it touches. And I think that makes some sense, considering Laertes and Hamlet are killed by a poisoned sword, and Gertrude and Claudius both die after drinking poisoned wine. Well, but still, that type of reading is undermined by the words of the ghost of King Hamlet. The ghost demands that Hamlet revenge his, being King Hamlet's, foul and most unnatural murder. I love those lines. Which seems to contradict that Hamlet's troubles are the result of taking any revenge at all against his uncle. And we can find that information in Act 1, Scene 5, line 25. Fortinbras also desires revenge, or to engage in an act of revenge in order to preserve honor. Horatio tells the reader, or the viewer, that after Denmark refuses to return the lands lost by Fortinbras' father in a duel with King Hamlet, Fortinbras hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of landless resolutes, and it doth well appear unto our state but to recover of us by strong hand and terms compulsative those foresaid lands so by his father lost. That's Act 1, Scene 1, lines 96 and 97, and lines 100 and 103. So neither Horatio nor Marcellus appear shocked that Fortinbras is militarily preparing to regain the lands lost by his father. So this would indicate that they view Fortinbras' desire to restore his father's honor as perfectly reasonable, even though it threatens Denmark's security. Finally, after Polonius's death, a rash Laertes storms into Claudius's castle and angrily proclaims, how came he, and he meaning Polonius, how came he dead? I'll not be juggled with, right? To hell allegiance, vows to the blackest devil, conscience and grace to the profoundest pit. I dare damnation. Let come what comes. Only I'll be revenged most thoroughly for my father. And that's in Act 4, Scene 5, lines 126 and 126 and 132. So by saying that his one aim in life is now to revenge his father's murder, regardless of the consequences, Laertes admits to considering revenge as a means of honoring his father's memory, and he considers that very important. The idea of the importance of revenge is further communicated by Laertes' impulsively exclaiming that he does not care what happens to him, even though the earthly and heavenly penalties of murdering King Claudius, who is God's appointed representative, might be quite severe. Thus, despite Laertes' anger, Shakespeare doesn't seem to be criticizing Laertes' desire to revenge his father's murder. So it seems evident that, at least to me, that Hamlet, Fortinbras, and Laertes should not be criticized for wanting to revenge their father's deaths. However, since Fortinbras survives, Fortinbras, I'm not sure, I think it's Fortinbras, survives to rule Denmark, while Hamlet and Laertes both die, one must consider, we as the viewers must consider, the possible mistakes that lead to Hamlet and Laertes' deaths, perhaps mistakes that Fortinbras does not make. Well, Prince Hamlet's first mistake is that he does not act, and this is the key word, he does not act timely when seeking revenge. In fact, Hamlet has a difficult time playing the role of revenge hero, the role that's assigned to him by his culture, and he says of himself at one point, this is Act 2, I'm pretty sure, Act 2, Scene 2, "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I!" So Hamlet cannot easily force himself to perform a role, which in Act 1, Scene 5, he promised, right? Hamlet promised he would perform such a role when he told his father's ghost, right? He told his father's ghost, and another great line by Hamlet, "Haste, haste, let me know it. Let me know it, being your murderer, so that with wings as swift as mediation or the thoughts of love may sweep to my revenge." Well, yeah, right. Even after the play, right? Hamlet completely doesn't follow that what he's told his father's ghost he would do, because even after the play, within the play, in which Hamlet receives ample proof that Claudius murdered his father, Hamlet cannot bring himself to act. Right? He can't. An additional mistake is that Hamlet does not publicly confide in anyone except Horatio. So this unwillingness to rouse a public support against Claudius ultimately leads to Polonius's death and indirectly to Ophelia's death. King Claudius, if we can believe him, tells Laertes that Hamlet is greatly loved by the people of Denmark. So it seems that Hamlet could have raised, if Hamlet's so loved by the people of Denmark, it seems that an active Hamlet, right, could have raised support against Claudius, much like, for example, Richmond raised his support against King Richard Gloucester, that evil, Ian McClellan character, right, in Richard III. Of course, I'm going from the Lohengrin adaptation there, but Hamlet doesn't gain public support to challenge Claudius. Hamlet, instead, in a moment of total rashness, again, this is following the play within the play, he murders Polonius, and this severely undermines Hamlet's own credibility. It sets into motion the later conflict between Hamlet and Laertes. Laertes, just to talk about him a bit, he makes similar mistakes to what Hamlet makes. Originally, Laertes is willing to publicly commit any necessary action to achieve his revenge, which again, this both taints his honor and leads to his death. Additionally, when speaking about with Hamlet before the sword jousting, Laertes lies to Hamlet by claiming that he will maintain his honor and reputation toward Hamlet until, and I think the words he uses is some elder masters of known honor determine what action is to be taken. I mean, of course, this is a lie, considering that Laertes and Claudius have secretly plotted to murder Hamlet during the joust, and Laertes is hardly satisfied in nature by Hamlet's apology in Act 5, Scene 2, line 182. So, in contrast with Hamlet and Laertes' unwillingness to act publicly and transparently in acts of revenge, Fortinbras appears to act both publicly and transparently. In Act 1, Scene 1, Horatio admits that, and I quote, it doth well appear, right? It appears transparent, right? It doth well appear unto our state that Fortinbras wishes to regain the land lost by his father. Furthermore, Claudius exclaims that Fortinbras hath not failed to pester us being, of course, Denmark, with message importing the surrender of those lands lost by his father. So clearly, Fortinbras is hardly hiding his intention for a public, perhaps even an honorable, reprisal. Fortinbras undoubtedly wants Denmark to return the lands lost by his father, and he is willing to even act militarily if he can achieve his ends through peaceful diplomatic means. Furthermore, unlike Hamlet and unlike Laertes, Fortinbras does not appear to bear personal hatred against either Claudius or against Prince Hamlet. In fact, at the end of the play, Fortinbras says of the deceased Prince Hamlet, he was likely, had he been put to have proved most royally. Well, similarly, I think, although perhaps too late, Hamlet begins to realize how his previous private scheming and inaction toward revenging his father's murder have dishonored him. So speaking about Fortinbras' military endeavor to retake a small piece of land from Poland, Hamlet says, rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake, right? So Hamlet, and this is Act 4, Scene 4, right? Hamlet is angry with himself for not having quickly and publicly acted, even though he had, and he says this, a father killed and a mother stained. So essentially, Hamlet is saying that death for honor has much worth, even if the amount of land, and that would be the or the object of your honorable revenge, which is in the case of Fortinbras land, is rather insignificant from a purely statistical standpoint. So applying Fortinbras' actions to his own situation, Hamlet recognizes that he is more than justified in seeking revenge against Claudius. In fact, Hamlet says, "Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth." That's Act 4, Scene 2. Well, I'll continue this discussion of Hamlet and revenge in part 2 of my video. Thank you for watching.